I'm the Dean of Division at Chapman University in Orange. I am not here to talk about Chapman, however. I'm talking about private schools in general. I will maybe give you some specific references in Chapman just for context for something we're talking about, but I'm going to give you some general kind of thinking points to help you differentiate the private from the public universities, and then maybe the power of what I call the 1-2 punch that a private school can offer, like mine, of the liberal arts orientation with a very strong pre-professional, even pre-professional conservatory type program, okay, as opposed to what might be happening at the public schools. So I'm also a former OCSA parent. My son went here from 2000 to 2006, and he got his in the Music and Theater Conservatory. Got a good start here and good pedigree is the way I put it to people. He is a struggling actor in New York now. But, he's only 24, and he 2 days after graduating from college, he went to New York City, and it's been 2.5 years now. He's had one national tour that he was a featured role, and yeah, he's been all over the country in a damn Yankees. So he's done okay, and he's very proud of the fact that he went to school here, and he knows he would never be where he is. Actually, right now, he's working in a restaurant as a server tonight. So that's not what I meant. He knows he would never be where he is and without this place, and so I've always just been a champion of your school, and you guys are all very lucky to be here, okay? What I want to do is, Kathy was very nice to provide me with a list of questions that a lot of you guys have posed. And it's a great list, so I'm just going to kind of go through the list if we have time. And I'm going to do this much quicker than I usually do. I'm not very good at speed talking, and I'm going to talk to Kathy about the fact that these sessions are only 25 minutes long. That just doesn't work for me. And it doesn't give us enough time. Normally this might be 45 minutes or an hour to have adequate time for questions, but I'm going to kind of rip through my areas, and then we'll have time for questions from you guys. What I want to do is give you a few thought concepts, again, to differentiate the private from the public schools. And I'm going to be very blatant about this. First of all, size. These are things you need to be very thoughtful about, I think, both parents and students here. Most of the private schools are small to mid-size. We're talking about maybe between 2,000 and 8,000 students. Tons of benefits associated with schools that size. Small classes, personalized instruction, access to teachers, advisors, the things you need that you have a good deal of trouble with probably at a much larger public university. The term personalized is kind of overworked, I know, but it's a very real thing at the private universities. Non-impacted programs. This is a term you may not have heard, impacted. It simply means you cannot get into something. And even if you're in it, maybe you can't get out of it. You've heard the horror stories of friends you might have at public universities, and they're stuck, they're spinning their wheels. They can't get the courses they need to get out. And so they're spending 6, 7 years to get a bachelor's degree. And it's interesting when you think about, I know a lot of folks are scared off by the cost of a private university, but if you all of a sudden think, well, you can graduate in 4 years from a private university. It might take me 7 years from a public school. Now all of a sudden the cost is starting to equalize. So it's definitely something to factor in. Environment, the majority of private universities are residential. So they offer a real 24/7 living, learning environment, as opposed to most of the public schools being commuter type schools. So be thoughtful about that, and particularly if you're going to go away from home somewhere, you don't want to end up at a commuter type public university if you're away from home. So it's really, really something you need to be careful of. And then I already touched on this, what I think is a very powerful combination of the liberal arts orientation, in some ways an extension of what's been going on here at OCSA, with continuing to develop your writing and communication skills, along with the pre-professional orientation or whatever you end up majoring in, including the performing arts areas. At my school, our performing arts, dance, theater, music, are very serious programs. These are people that are preparing to go on for careers in these areas. I already gave you the example of my kid. And so we think this, again, is a very, very powerful combination. I'll give you a really quick story. My son's roommate in New York went to a very exclusive elite conservatory for theater back east. I'm not going to tell you which one. And he had some of his friends come and spend the weekend with my son, him and my son. These other kids went to this same conservatory. This is about a year ago. And I was talking to my son on the phone, and I said, how was your weekend with Jason's friends? And he said, Dad, they don't know anything. And I said, what do you mean they don't know anything? He said, well, they know all about the theater and their craft and stuff, but they don't know anything else. They have no education. And I thought it was a really interesting kind of perspective for him to throw out there after having spent the weekend with these kids. And you know, my son, when I went and saw him last week in New York, I had to spend the whole day going through the Frick Museum, you know, because he wanted to see it again. And you know, so he's got this kind of background, but apparently the kids that go to the exclusively conservatory programs don't. So the point I'm trying to make is, even if you're very, very serious about your craft, don't dismiss the idea of a liberal arts university that may have a real strong conservatory program too, because having both of those things, I think, will bode well for you in your life, maybe much more so than having gone to an exclusively conservatory school. So enough of that commercial. But another thing I want to talk about is the OCSA transcript and the curriculum here. Do admission people get it, what you guys go through here? And I think we do. Not just at my school, but, and I will take some credit for getting in the ear of lots of my counterparts about what you guys go through here. And they realize now too, it's not the same as somebody at a public high school, for example, who is also maybe into the arts or athletics or something. You know, they go to school until 1 o'clock, they go to practice, maybe rehearsal for something, and then they go home at 5. Well, we know you guys are here all day, then you go in academics, and you're exhausted, then you go to conservatory, then you go to rehearsal, and you're not even coming home until 10 o'clock. I mean, I know that. I lived this with my son for 6 years, because I was down here at 10 o'clock to pick him up. So we do get that. We understand what you go through. It doesn't always jump right off the OCSA transcript, and you know, again, I've had to teach a lot of my counterparts about that, but I think we've made some great strides there. And anyway, we do get that. Related to that whole thing, when we're looking at both admission and scholarship, which we recalculate your grade point average, we're going to include the conservatory coursework in the academic GPA if you are intending to major in the same or similar program at the college level that you were doing here. If you were in music and theater here and you're going to major in business at Chapman, we're not going to use the conservatory grades in the grade point average calculation. But if you were going to go into music and theater there, we would take them into that, okay?
Are you one of the only schools that does that?
No, I do not think so. I think that's pretty common. Just from feedback I've gotten.
In private schools?
Yes.
More than public?
I can't speak to the public universities. You're going to have to talk to them about that. I don't know. Okay? But the private schools are very hip on what goes on here, believe me. Any question about that?
Yeah.
Or anything I've already spewed out? I'm trying to go so fast. It's okay.
Does the same hold true with the creative writing conservatory?
Oh, yeah.
For those to be considered, you'd have to be in a creative writing program at Chapman. For writing.
Pam, what do you think about that?
I never heard that. So.
Well, it would still, the scenario is still true. It would carry over, you know, if they want to major in creative writing, which is really a good program at Chapman.
No.
Okay. Yeah, we would definitely take those courses. Okay. Let me hit on my list a little bit that I got from Kathy. Is the cost based on units needed for the degree? Well, it's a flat charge. Everybody pays the same. Financial aid and scholarship vary, you know, depending upon what your financial circumstances are, but what the actual price tag is the same for everybody because it's a charge for a full-time student, whether you're taking a minimum schedule of, on the semester system, like 12 credits, or whether you're taking 20 credits a semester, everybody pays the same, okay? So it's not based on per unit. Let me segue just a little bit to cost. This is the biggest factor that scares people off from looking into private schools. You guys are very lucky to be in this environment for not very much money. You know, you make a nice contribution to be here, but it's not like a private university tuition, believe me, okay? The majority of people at a private school are there with either need-based financial aid, merit scholarship based on the grades and test scores, talent scholarship in areas like art, music, dance, theater, writing, science, athletics, or a combination of those things, okay? The majority of people at my school are like that. Now, I know a lot of folks think, well, everybody at Chapman or USC, they're wealthy and they can just afford to go there. No, no, it's the opposite. This year of our freshman class, almost 9 out of 10, almost 90% have either need-based financial aid, merit scholarship, talent scholarship, or a combination of those things. So only 1 out of 10 don't have some kind of assistance. So I'm exploding this myth that everybody that goes to a private school is wealthy, because that's not the case. You need to apply for financial aid, parents. I think you got a pitch about that earlier tonight, senior parents did anyway. You need to file the FAFSA form. It's very easy to do. It takes about 45 minutes to fill this thing out. You get last year's tax return, you have to refer to that. You sit down and fill it out, send it off. You do it one time. It goes to all the colleges your child is applying to, and then you sit back and wait and see what the school is going to do for you. And if you're applying to schools with similar costs, you will get back a similar package or feedback on what they're going to do. But I have to tell you that every year I have parents that come to me and thank me for encouraging them to apply for need-based financial aid when they originally were not going to do it, because they thought, well, we're just not going to qualify. You know, I have a nice job, my spouse does, we have a beautiful home, we have assets. You still could qualify for need-based aid, because yes, the worse you look on paper, the better. You know, the more liabilities you have, the better to qualify for financial aid, of course. But it also works in relation to the cost of the school you're applying to. So a private school with a higher tuition, lots of people end up being eligible for need-based financial aid. I mean, you apply to Cal State Fullerton and Chapman. Fullerton says you don't get any financial aid because it's very inexpensive. Go here. Chapman says, yeah, you qualify for need-based aid. That's a kind of a simple analogy, but essentially that's how it works. So don't not apply for financial aid because you think you aren't going to get it. Based on what you thought or somebody else told you, think about what Uncle Mike's telling you.
When do you send in that application?
Okay. When do you apply for financial aid? It's the same for every school, so this is good. Between January 1st and February 1st is the window that you file the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. And these guys here are very experienced with this, these guys being the college counseling group here. And the handbook that you have. Did I already talk about the handbook? It's hard to do 4 sessions and not repeat yourself, believe me. Margie Moen developed the best college guide handbook I have seen in 37 years in this business. It's the best one. It's got the best information. It's the most comprehensive. Some of you, I've noticed, are carrying it around in hard copy. I know it's online on your website. You guys, it's there for you to drill into. Please do your due diligence and use this as a resource, because most families do not have this at other schools. So you're very lucky to have it. It's got information about private outside scholarships that you can apply for in addition to what the colleges are going to offer you. It's a terrific resource.
What's it
So
called again?
it's the handbook. I don't know what it's actually called.
OCSA College Handbook. Yeah,
OCSA College Handbook. It's on your website for free. Yes, sir.
And the Chapman example of 9 out of 10 incoming freshmen getting financial aid, what's the rough percentage of that aid versus the total cost of the
Just so happens, the average financial aid package is just over $30,000 a year on a total budget of about 50. That's the average. So that doesn't mean everybody only gets 30. That's the person in the very, right in the middle. Our school is full of people that are walking around there who are paying hardly anything because they are very needy and they're very smart. And then there's every other scenario on both sides of that. So it's going to be different for every family. But my school would be out of business if we didn't have this available to you guys. There just aren't that many people that can afford to go to a private university. So the point I'm trying to make is, the vast majority of people at private schools are there with financing assistance. And we're not just talking about student loans. Colleges are, fortunately, there are limits on the borrowing, so you can't get indebted, just borrow whatever you want. You can do that for graduate and professional school, but not as an undergraduate for a baccalaureate degree. Yes, ma'am?
How does that work for subsequent years? So in other words, your child gets in, you develop this great package as a freshman.
Yeah.
What are the chances that you're going to have it for the 4 years?
Okay, great question. The financial aid part, based on need, will vary. You do reapply for financial aid every year. So if your family situation varies wildly, one way or the other, it's definitely going to impact your financial aid eligibility. The merit scholarship that the student gets coming in based on their grades and test scores, when they get that coming in the first year, all they need to do to maintain that for the second, third, and fourth year is to maintain a 2.75 grade point average. So nobody loses a merit scholarship at my school, and I think it works pretty much the same way at most other schools. The talent scholarship, let's say a dancer, for example, they have performance obligations and things that they have to live up to keep their scholarship each year. But I've not heard of anybody at my school who has lost a talent scholarship due to an adverse or weird situation where they fell out of favor or something like that. Okay? The other thing that you need to be careful of is there are still a few colleges out there that will say, you've got this great scholarship, congratulations, but they don't tell you it's only for the first year. And fortunately, that's kind of going away now, but it would be something to clarify and make sure. Okay? Great questions. So anything else about cost? Don't be scared off by the cost without looking into it. It works more often than not. Let me skip through them real quick because we're almost out of time again. Okay, this is good. Should I send all of my SAT or ACT scores in or just my best testing? Now with the College Board's SAT score choice, I believe you can just send scores that you want rather than it used to be where we got everything. I would encourage you to send everything, all your scores. And we want to see those, not so we can see how terribly your student did the first time they did it and laugh about it and all that. We don't care about that. Here's why. We divide up your testings. It's what's called super scoring. So let's say your student took the SAT 3 times. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the best score of the 3 sections from all 3 tests to make one composite score. So because of that, it's really to your advantage to take it several times. I never recommend sitting on one score. I mean, unless it's, 2,300 or something like that. Otherwise, your students should be taking it at least twice, maybe 3 times. It really works to their advantage to do that.
I thought we were told let them take it like 2 or 3 times
Well, you can only send in one score.
Right.
I'm suggesting you send all of them, because you might have a real high section on one,
Oh, okay.
and maybe,
Okay,
you know,
okay.
better than the other, okay? It really works to your advantage, because we super score. Yes?
But that won't matter if that last score that you took, everything was higher
Oh,
than
yeah.
the last one, just.
Yeah, yeah, it's fine. But be careful about that, and really, you know, review the scores carefully so you know for sure, because every point can make a difference with regard to both admission and particularly with scholarship. You know, we have real specific cutoffs by 1 point that could be the difference between like a $20,000 and a $25,000 a year scholarship. Exact, I know. And sometimes it's heartbreaking because they're just, I mean, so I do what I can. Pam, you should know this. I do what I can to fudge the scores to get them up as high as they can be. I get a little creative sometimes, but it's still usually pretty black and white. Okay? So you should have all your scores sent in. And do you factor AP scores into the admission process? Yes, of course. AP courses are weighted to a 5-point scale. So, and then there's the whole rigor thing on top of that. The college would, any college would much rather see you get a B or a C in an AP class than get an A in a pedestrian course of the same topic. You know, it might make your grade point average a little higher, but it also could be the determining factor the other way of whether you got admitted or not, because the college wants the kids who have challenged themselves the most, not necessarily the people with the highest GPA, particularly if they have a soft program.
Most colleges accept applications in the November timeframe. How do they factor in senior year?
Okay, great question. Did you hear that? How do we factor in senior year? Because we're evaluating 10th and 11th grade in most cases for admission. And then it'll be our decision if we want to wait and look at the first half of 12th grade or not. But in most cases, we do make the admission decision based on 10th and 11th grade. University of California does the same thing. It's just how the process works. Now, what I will do, though, is I go back and look at the first semester of the senior year, and I recalculate the grade point averages again. And if the GPA went up, and particularly if it got them into a new scholarship category, then we'll plug in the first half of 12th grade. I'm going to do everything I can to, you know, be beneficial.